Welcome to the Unit 5 review to help you prepare for that test retake. This first question says, Friday evening, you count up all the money you earned for the week. The money earned is shown as an algebraic expression in the table below. So we have the days of the week, Monday through Friday, and then we have how much money you earned. And these are all algebraic expressions. Then it says, show how much money you earned for the week, Monday through Friday, as a simplified algebraic expression and show your work. So basically, we want to take what we earned on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday and Friday, and we want to add them all together. We want to get the total for the whole week. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to take what we earned on Monday, 2x plus 1, and then we're going to add it to what we earned on Tuesday. And then we're going to add it to what we earned on Wednesday. And then add it to what we earned on Thursday. And finally, add in what we earned on Friday. We're trying to get the total for the whole week, so we have to add that whole week together. And now we're going to start combining like terms. My highest exponent is x squared. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to find all of my x squareds. And remember, you want to keep the sign and the coefficient or the number in front of it. So I'm going to box off all these x squareds and I'm going to make sure that I get the sign and the number in front of it. Oh, that's not an x squared. Goodness gracious. Don't do that. That was just an x. Okay, so now I'm going to combine all of those x squareds together. So here, I don't have a number. Anytime you don't have a number, you put a 1 there as a placeholder. We have 1x squared plus 2x squared, which is 3x squared, minus 2x squared would leave us with 1x squared. And you can either put the 1 there or you can leave it off. It doesn't matter. Okay, and then the next highest thing that I notice is my x's. So I'm going to go ahead and find all of my x's and make sure when you circle them, you circle the number and the sign in front of it. So now I have 2x's minus 2x's, which is no x's, plus 7x's. So I'm going to be left with 7x's. And for some of you, it might really help to cross these out once you deal with them. So keep that in mind too. If you want to cross them out, you can. And then the last thing I'm going to do is my numbers, my just plain old numbers. Those are called constants. They don't have any x value with them. And we always keep the sign in front of it. So I have a positive 1 minus 3, that's negative 2. And then negative 2 plus 7 would be positive 5. And then positive 5 minus 12 would be negative 7, I think. Let me put that in the calculator. Yeah, okay. So I've simplified it. I can't simplify it any further because I can't combine x squareds with x's or x's with numbers. That's all I can do. So that is my simplified expression. All right, so again, we're going to simplify. That means we need to find all of our like terms and combine them. So it looks like my highest exponent is x to the third. I'm going to go through and circle all the x cubes. And remember to keep the number and the sign in front of it. So I have 10x cubed minus 10x cubed. That means there's no x cubes left. You don't put a 0x cubed because there are none left. So you just leave that blank. There are no x cubes. So we're not going to put anything for that. Now we're going to look at our x squareds. We have a negative 6x squared, positive 5x squared, positive 7x squared, and that's it. So let's combine those. You would just need to do negative 6 plus 5 plus 7. You can do it in your calculator or your brain. Negative 6 plus 5 would be a negative 1 plus 7 would give us a positive 6x squared. And then we need to look for our x's. We have a positive 3x, and there's no other x's, so I can just write down positive 3x. And then we'll look at our constants, or just our plain old numbers. I have a plus 5 and a plus 10, so that is 15. This is my simplified expression. All right, on this one we want to add and then simplify. So because there's a plus sign in the middle of the parentheses, we don't have to do anything with the signs. We can just go ahead and combine our like terms and add them as is. So I'm going to look for my highest exponent. In this case, it's 4. So I'm going to combine my b's to the 4th first. So I have negative 6 and a positive 11. Oh, sorry, I should have kept that sign in front of it. Oops. Okay, Anyways, so you could go ahead and do that in your calculator or your brain. -6 plus 11. Oops. So we're going to get positive 5b to the 4th. My next highest exponent is b squared. So I'm going to go ahead and circle all the b squareds. And notice this one doesn't have a number in front of it, which means you got to put your 1 there. And -1b squared plus 2b squared would give us a positive 1b squared. And then we're going to look at our b's. So we have 5b minus b. And remember, if there's no number, you put a 1 there. And 5 minus 1 is 4 b's. And that is all the way simplified. Now, if it's a multiple choice answer, they might not put the 1 in front of the b. You need to know that that doesn't have to be there. So it could be written as just plus b squared. It doesn't have to have the 1 there. All right, and this one we want to subtract and then simplify. And here there is a minus between the parentheses, so that is very, very important that we distribute that negative. What this minus tells us is that we're going to change the sign of everything in the parentheses after it. So if we distribute that negative, the 2 becomes a -2, the 7x becomes a -7x, and the 8 becomes a -8x to the 4th. Now, it's not always the case that they all end up negative. You just want to change the sign. And it just so happened that they all were positive to begin with, so they all changed to a negative. But if I had a negative to begin with, I would want to make sure that I change it to a positive. And now we're going to combine our like terms. We have some x to the 4th. So 4 minus 8 would be a -4 x to the 4th. And then the next highest would be just x's. So 10x minus 7x would be 3x. And then our constants, a positive 9 and a -2. 9 minus 2 is 7. So just make sure if you see that minus sign in the middle that you change the signs of everything after it. Multiply. Okay, these numbers are in scientific notation. So when we multiply in scientific notation, we can kind of take a little shortcut here where we're going to go ahead and multiply the numbers. And I would just do that in your calculator. So you're going to do 4.88 times 1.5. That gives me 7.32. So I multiplied my numbers. And then to deal with my exponents, I'm just going to rewrite it. 10 to the -3 times 10 to the -4. When you're multiplying exponents and you have the same base, you can take a little shortcut where you keep the base the same and then you add your exponents. So -3 plus -4 is -7. This would be my final answer in scientific notation. So let's practice that again. We want to multiply the two numbers that are in scientific notation. So we're just going to multiply our regular numbers first. So 8.5 times 4.2. So in this case, it gives me 35.7. So we're going to look at that again in just a minute. But then I'm going to take my exponents, and I have 10 to the 6th times 10 to the -8. Because I have the same base, I can just go ahead and write down that base, and I can add my exponents. When you multiply, you add. So 6 plus -8 is a -2. Now, here's the thing, y'all. This cannot be your final answer because in order for it to be in scientific notation, the decimal has to be after the first number. So we need to move this decimal one more time. And I'm going to go ahead and write this out. 35.7. And when you have times 10 to the -2, that means you're moving the decimal twice. And because that exponent is negative, when I move my decimal twice, I want to make the number smaller. So if I move the decimal twice this way, it would become a much bigger number. Instead, I'm going to move my decimal twice to make it smaller. So I could rewrite this as 0.357. That's how you could convert it from scientific notation to standard form. But if they want the answer in scientific notation, then just remember that you want the decimal to be after the first number. So I'm going to move it back one. So 3.57 times 10, and I moved it one time, so it would be times 10 to the -1. So that one was a little bit trickier because when we multiplied it out, our decimal ended up in the wrong spot, so we did have to move that decimal. All right, simplify the expression. these two things are being multiplied together. So we want to make sure that we take that 3n and then we multiply it by each of the things in the parentheses. We're going to have to distribute. So we're going to do 3n times 6n, and we're going to do 3n times 7. And I just kept whatever sign was already there. And then we're going to multiply it out. 3 times 6 is 18. And when I have an n here and an n here and I multiply them, that actually makes 2 n's because you have n to the first power on each of those. When you multiply, you add your exponents. All right, and then 3 times 7 is 21. And in this case, I only have one n, so I don't need to change the exponent. It's just an n. You can't combine those, so that is your final answer. All right, we're going to multiply the binomials. And when I multiply binomials, which means two numbers in the first, or two things in the first parentheses and two things in the second parentheses separated by a plus or minus sign, I'm going to use the box method. So I'm going to take this first expression and I'm going to put it on top. I have an n here and a -6 there. And then I'm going to take my second expression and I'm going to put it on the side. So I have an n here and a +1 there. And then I'm going to multiply them to fill them in, just like you do in the Punnett square in science. So right here we would have n times n, which is n squared. For this box we would have -6 times n, which is a -6n. Here we have a 1 times n, so 1n. And then over here we have a 1 times -6, which is a -6. And then we're going to combine our like terms. And I like how this makes a little plus sign in the middle. That reminds me to add those together. So the way I write it is I write down my n squareds first. So n squared. And then -6n plus 1n is -5n. And then I write down my -6 at the end. We're going to practice another one of those. So I'm going to go ahead and make my box. It's a 2 by 2 box because I have 2 in each parentheses. So 2x plus 2, and then 8x plus 6, and then I multiply it out. 8x times 2x is 16x squared. 8x times 2 is just 16 with 1x. This one's going to be 12x, and then this one's going to be 12. And then I'm going to combine those like terms, and it makes that nice little plus sign in the middle. So I'm going to write it down 16x squared, and then I'm going to add these up. So I'm going to get 28x, and then I'm going to write down my 12, and that would be my answer. To simplify this expression, we are multiplying exponents that have the same base. So we just write down the base stays the same, and because we're multiplying, we add our exponents. So 5 plus -2 is going to be 3. And then on this one, to simplify, we're dividing, and when we divide with the same base, we can subtract our exponents. So our base is going to stay the same, and then we're going to do 15 minus 4, which is 11. So this would be x to the 11th. And I want to go ahead and show you one other way to do this. You could write out 15 x's on the top. And then you could write out 4 x's on the bottom. And then you could eliminate anything that will eliminate. And then you just count what's left. And we have 11 x's left on the top. So we would write x to the 11th. I'm going to go back and show you that method here too. So the first thing you need to remember is you cannot have a negative exponent. It doesn't make sense because the exponent tells you how many times to do something, and you can't do something negative times. You can't go swing a bat negative times. It just doesn't make sense. So if we wanted to use that in this case, we would leave x to the 5 on top, and then if you want to make the exponent positive, you have to move x squared down to the bottom. And then you could write out your 5 x's on top and your 2 x's on the bottom, and you could cancel, and you would see, wait a minute, I put 3 x's on the bottom. What am I doing? I've lost my mind. Okay, you would put your 5 x's on the top and your 2 x's on the bottom, and then you would cancel, and you would see that you were left with 3 x's on the top. All right, guys, good luck on your Unit 5 test retake.